Hey, everybody, and welcome to big episode number 118 of the fourth season of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good folks at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy excellence, acting as your lead blocker on your quest to fantasy glory. I, of course, am your host, Nat the Truth Jones, fresh off being out in the rain at my kid's soccer practice for a while, out of the cold into the warmth, the warm.
You like these burly arms, these bear hugs that the wolf can give. Yes,
getting us ready
welcome
for
on
week
in.
7.
There's nothing
Wolf,
more dad than just standing out in the pouring rain, watching your kid, probably screaming from the sidelines, like, hustle up, let's go. That is just the ultimate dad, outside of maybe the butterfly farm visit I heard about last year. That thrilling visit, too. You didn't go to that? Oh yeah.
I didn't even go to that. No, I mean, my kids.
Yeah, of course.
I stayed home.
Yeah, doing like calisthenics.
I might have even recorded with you during it. No, I mean, I might have yelled hustle once.
Do you bring your own whistle?
During practice?
Do you bring your own whistle to practice?
Come on, man. If I'm gonna stand out there, in the rain, my kid better be going at least something close to him. So here's the fact that I can't just say unequivocally no to that. It's something, but so here's the thing. I don't intentionally bring a whistle, but I bring my backpack with me that has multiple whistles in it.
Not
so
yet, at least.
If I wanted
Plenty
to
of time
pull
to
out
blow
a
some
whistle, I
drills
could.
dead. No, I'm doing good though, Nad. Not in the pouring rain. It's been a nice coming off of a great event at Old Planners. We had a huge turnout. They want us to come back as soon as possible. Even said they might even pay the Roto Street Journal. We might have our first monetized, weekly gig. I know it went smashing though. I mean, the turnout was fantastic. I gotta love my Beverly crew. Some other people that showed up at new Old Planners as well. So great collaboration event. We definitely are looking to do it in the near future, maybe as early as next week too. So just keeping that. Yeah, no, I was thrilled about that. My fantasy season's rolling right now. Third place, second most points, 4-2.
Wow.
Got a win over the roommate, which is always fun to be able to hold that over his head all week. So yeah, it's been a good time for the Wolf so far. No real depression right now. How about you?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I had the top score in my hometown league this week. Remember, last week was an utter disaster for me in every league. And so I'm also 4-2 in that league.
Yeah.
I had Russell Wilson, I had James Conner, I had Chris Godwin, I had what
I love too in fantasy is
David
what happened
Johnson
to
didn't
me.
have a great week,
We got to
but
come up
still
with some
scored.
sort of
I
glossary
just
term
did
for it
really,
when the
really well.
special
I had like
teams just
180
dominate
points.
for you. Because I had the Carolina defense and Joey Sly combo, and I know a lot of people out there did. 15 points from him, 21 from the defense. I mean, what did Jameis turn it over 7 times? Something insane, like new record lows for Jameis Winston. Yeah, insane. 5 picks and a fumble. The guy was just insanely horrendous. That's just the best feeling too. I know, like a London game when I was facing McCaffrey. To have my defense outscore McCaffrey, you're just like, all right, I'm rolling. That's just a great feeling. Lovely.
Yeah, I was in a good spot. I'm in an auction league also, and I was in a good spot.
They've been
after
like an MVP all year.
Defense,
I mean, I think
just
they're
rolled
the
them
third
out.
highest
I was just
score
watching
all of
points
fantasy
just like
of all
pile up and
positions.
just
It's
kind of
insane.
like kicking back. I really enjoyed that quite a lot.
Oh, easily. I think it's top 5. Yeah. Oh.
I know they're
it's
like
regular
top
for
10
them
at
right
least.
now.
I mean, they're way up.
Insane.
I mean, I think I got 30
Great
out of
stuff.
them last week, which is not even that. I mean, it's not even that crazy. They've done it like 3
Hell
times,
yeah.
right? So thank you, Giants.
Got it.
All right, we're gonna get right into this. We
Fast
got Survivor
crankers over
coming
here.
up in 36 minutes, so we're gonna see how we can crank this thing out. Got a lot of big names in the trainers room. We got a big
let's
trainers
do it.
room, and of course we got high or lower Hail Mary, and then we're gonna hit the mailbag, and we'll see how close to 8 o'clock we can get out of here. Anyway, trainers room, we got some big names involved. I'm just going to hit you with a bunch of them, see your take on them. Alvin Kamara, we saw he's been dealing with a high ankle sprain. He says he hopes to play against the Bears. I mean, what else is the guy going to say? But I do appreciate the optimism. Obviously, if he wasn't going to play, possibly he would be a little less candid about wanting to play so much. So what do you think? Are you expecting to see Kamara out there? I kind of feel like the Saints might be the class of the NFC all of a sudden once again.
So the fact that he's even optimistic, and Kamara is a tough little prick, I wouldn't be shocked to see him out there. He really is. But ultimately, he's going to be limited. He's facing the Bears. You'd have to really temper your expectations. I'm facing Kamara this week, so I'm pretty stoked about that. If he doesn't play, then fire up Latavius Murray as a very high-end RB2, just because he'd become a 20-plus touch back. They signed Zach Zenner today, which isn't a great sign for Kamara's outlook. I imagine they just release him if Kamara can play, but with the tough matchup with, Teddy Bridgewater still at Q, I can see them just resting. I don't know when their bye is exactly up, but I think it's within the next week or two. I wouldn't be shocked to see them hold him out at least this week with that tough, that Bears defense is not someone you want your stud offensive centerpiece going against if he's not at 100%.
Agree. And I mean, the Saints have an excellent record so far, and the Bears offense is such that you could see the Saints coming in, hamstrung basically on offense and still eking out a win here.
Yeah.
So it's almost like playing with house money a little bit. You could see holding Kamara out and still getting, a 16-7 win or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right about that. Another guy that may return this week, Todd Gurley. A lot of buzz about playing Malcolm Brown if you're, fantasy owners last week. And the guy did get some carries, did not really do much. So, I mean, if you started him, probably
it seems like he has. He's been practicing as of today. The early reports last week was they expected him back.
What do you think?
Is he going to be back this week? Of course, if he's out there, he's facing Atlanta. Soft matchup that gives up a ton of receptions to running backs. We saw David Johnson and Chase Edmonds both score against that hapless hapless Falcons team. And I just see this, I love targeting this game for any type of fantasy matchups. If Gurley does sit, I know Malcolm Brown only 11 carries for 40 yards last week. Definitely disappointed. Darrell Henderson didn't do a whole hell of a lot, but actually looked more explosive than, he's actually used, which was nice to see signs of life from him. Ultimately, I think you could roll out Malcolm Brown much more comfortably this week. I think it said a lot more about the 49ers defense and specifically that D-line than it did about Malcolm Brown. He would be a high-end RB2 against the Falcons this week. So ultimately, I expect Gurley to go, and if he plays, definitely his usual low-end RB1 self, a good bet for one at least score, probably two. But if he doesn't go, you can have a lot more faith in Malcolm Brown this week than you could last week. They are. I really think they are. They dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and I'm such a believer in the line in football
for real?
that ultimately I think these 49ers are definitely legit. I don't see them going to the Super Bowl legit, but would not be shocked to see them go all the way to the NFC Championship even. It is.
Okay, that's a nasty division. I mean, you got the Rams, you got the Seahawks. I mean, I know the Rams are in a bit of a tailspin. Let's not give up on the Rams. And even the Cardinals, I mean, they kind of suck, but they're still fun, and they're able to string a win together here and there. Speaking of teams, I'll talk to them as we keep going. I got another team I want to talk about, but we're going to go down the injury report a little bit more. Saquon Barkley looks good to go.
Exactly.
Supposedly this is an injury that keeps people out 6 weeks or something. The guy seemed like he was ready after a week.
When he's out there, of course you're ripping Barkley back into your lineup, especially against a softy matchup like Arizona. I think that's going to be a sneaky back and forth shootout right there, and Barkley's definitely finding the end zone at least once, if not twice. Helps out the whole offense, too, having a presence like that. I mean, Danny Dimes has been under constant duress. They've had no running game presence to help him out. But then you put Barkley back, and now your defense is accounting for that. I could see Danny Dimes getting deep to Golden Tate a couple times. I think that whole offense is definitely going to take off this week. Oh, yeah, definitely. He blew up last week, and I think he's going to be on the list again this week. So I love Barkley, though. If he's there, it looks like he's going to be my number 2 running back, only behind Dalvin Cook this week.
All right, no practice for the Patriots on Wednesday, but on Tuesday, Josh Gordon did not practice due to his knee injury. We saw he missed, pretty much the whole second half of the game against the Giants. Was not even in there, much less getting anything thrown. He actually was physically not in the game. Now, he did post, allegedly, an uplifting IG message.
Absolutely, and I still am not uplifted in the least by Josh Gordon. As I said last week when he was one of my lower-ranked receivers, I said this guy is so overrated, it's just name value. As a Patriots fan, I wish it was different, but Flash Gordon has not even come close to living up to that nickname. He looks slow, he looks sluggish, he's out of shape, he's getting dinged up. So even if he plays, how could you put him in your lineup at this point? He's literally done nothing. He's never been above the wide receiver 28 this entire year, and it's only gotten worse and worse each week. It's not like the Jets are a tough matchup, but he's had cake matchups that he's done even less than. So I just have no faith in putting Josh Gordon into my lineup at all. Maybe he'll have one boom or two this year, but at this point, he could be hate cut material for you in fantasy if you really wanted to.
I think I texted the
I think you should have. Yeah, I must have missed that
text that we've got going that asked if he was a candidate for a hate cut.
Get a little hate cut. Video
nobody
going
was like jumping on it. Like, yeah, you're right. I kind of feel like
your feelings and emotions. It's very cathartic.
I kind of feel like maybe people were buying into what I was saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Me pushing the button and then just kind of taking a deep breath. Okay. Julio Jones limited with a nagging hip injury that allegedly he's been dealing with for a couple weeks now. He did practice.
I don't know where
in a limited fashion. I mean, is this a concern with Jalen Ramsey obviously being traded to the Rams?
Exactly.
By the way, how many first-round picks do the Rams have?
They're 2075 first-rounder, I think. Who knows where they keep pulling these out of their ass? How many times have we heard the Rams are going all in? Like, this is the 70th time I think they've gone all in. Again and again and again. And I don't know who or why they're going all in on Jared fucking Goff at this point. But, hey, to each their own.
Again.
Seriously. Might as well put Blake fucking Bortles out there. He'd get it done better. That Ramsey-Bortles connection back in action here. But, yeah, Julio, you got to be a little bit nervous about maybe this explains why he hasn't been dominating. He always has some sort of nagging. You put that word nagging in there. It feels like there's always something nagging every year, and then he'll eventually get over it and have like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, but not against Jalen Ramsey. It would be tough to bench Julio Jones ever, but if you had, 4 really good wide receivers, and I haven't updated my rankings to reflect Julio's, this nagging injury, the Jalen Ramsey matchup quite yet, I imagine he's going to fall right into my, bottom 14 or so. So if you're really stacked at the position, I could see you actually benching Julio this week, which would be crazy, but it is not without the realm of possibilities.
David Johnson missed Wednesday's practice. He's been dealing with an ankle injury for a couple weeks now. Didn't have a huge day as far as rushing the ball, but did actually catch quite a fefew passes for some real yardage on Sunday, and he scored. So it was actually a solid fantasy day for him. What do you think? Are you hearing anything about him playing? No? I mean, I've heard a little bit of buzz about Edmund, as being like a decent, like maybe
I think if he plays, he remains that
cheap
true
fantasy, daily fantasy play. But what do you think? Is Johnson going to be playing? Is he going to split the workload?
19, 20 touches, 25 fantasy points, 2 scores. I mean, the guy is a beast. So as long as he's out there, of course you're going to be playing him. And they operate just much more of a one-back system than a committee. Now we did see Chase Edmonds involved a little bit more last week. I'd imagine he'd have a similar role should Johnson play. I wouldn't be able to put Chase Edmonds in my lineup, though, if Johnson's playing. Now, if he sits, though, again, the Giants team giving up the 11th most points to running backs, definitely a soft matchup. So Edmonds would be a low-end RB1 and definitely one of, if not the most valuable handcuff in the game outside of maybe Alex Madison for the Vikings. You look at those roles. You project handcuffs based on roles, and this is just, as I said, a one-back system that loves to pepper him, and Edmonds has the 3-down skill set. If Johnson sits, you can definitely roll this guy out in your lineup as a confident RB1, so you have to own him if you're a Johnson guy, and even if not, put him on your bench for sure.
Cowboys in utter free fall right now. Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, both missed practice on Wednesday. Also, Michael Gallup limited in practice. I mean, I don't know how seriously to take any of these things, but man, the Cowboys, talk about a team that, after 3 weeks, people are like, man, this might be the best team in the NFL. I'd never thought they were that great, but I definitely was impressed with what they've been doing. Man, a close loss to the Saints, then, got their asses handed to them by the Packers, and then got their asses handed to them by the Jets.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously they had a 2-point conversion chance to tie at the end, but I mean, anytime you lose to the Jets, you're getting
definitely tail spinning out. I did think they were among the
what do
more
we think about
overrated
these
teams.
injuries?
I did think
what do you think about the Cowboys, kind of in a larger global sense,
as that offense was just humming along, and now they're starting to stall out a bit. Who knows if it's what factor it is, but they seem to be figured out a bit more. Dak seems to be regressing a little bit, and obviously if he's without 2 of his top weapons, that's got to be a concern fantasy wise for Dak this week, even against Philly, who's one of the worst secondaries in the league. We saw Kirk Cousins just bomb him for 4 touchdowns, so Dak still could have a very nice day even without 1 or 2 of his top guys. You're definitely still playing. He's my QB8 on the week, but even more so, as I just mentioned, they're so bad against wide receivers. The most points to fantasy wide receivers this Philadelphia team is surrendering, so whoever is out there for the Cowboys, even if that's, let's say, Devin Smith or Tavon Austin, during your bye week fill-ins, if you need someone desperate, it could be a Cowboy. So tracking these injury notes, seeing who's in there, who's out, is going going to be very important because at least one, Gallup's going to play, he's going to blow up, but probably their wide receiver 2 is also going to have at least 80 to 100 yards, whoever that ends up being. So make sure you track these notes because the matchup is that juicy.
There's a couple we can bunch together. Probably should have put these in with Saquon, but he's just such a bigger name than them. Evan Engram looks like he is going to play due to this knee injury. It's not going to keep him out. Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, but both guys against Arizona, very soft defense. I'd be more nervous about Shepard because Peterson is coming back. And he now that Golden Tate's there, he's played 83% of the wide receiver snaps, and all 83% of those have come out of the slot. And that's where, you could get a little bit free from Peterson. You won't have to, deal with his insane coverage. That means Shepard might be facing a lot more of their elite corner, but Evan Engram gets that matchup with, as we've talked about over and over again, you stream against Arizona no matter who it is, but Evan Ingram's certainly not a streamer. He's one of the most athletic freaks at the position. The fact that he's fully participating means you have to have him. He's actually locked into my number 1 tight end spot this week. I think he's going for 25-30 against this horrendous defense for sure.
Wow. Sammy Watkins has already been ruled out with a hamstring injury for the Chiefs. Speaking of another team, I feel like I'm saying everyone's in free fall. I wouldn't say the Chiefs are in free fall, but man, there's definitely some holes.
In what definitely pathetic. Like now on the road against Denver, who's sneakily strung together 2 wins, has one of the tougher defenses in the league. They've had some tight games.
Denver should be like 5-1. I mean, I think they suck. I want to be, I don't, I love Denver, or at least I used to.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost on last-second field goals to the Bears and the Jags. Both of those brought on by penalties on like drives like with 30 seconds to go. They're supposed to win both of those games. And, also week 1 against Oakland, I still really can't explain. But anyway, they should be 4-2 at worst right now.
No,
I
actually don't think it's without the realm of possibilities. I think they match up very well, especially with this offensive line.
Denver beating the Chiefs be the craziest thing you ever heard?
What's that? Sorry? He does, and actually, sneak peek when we go to our quarterback lowers. Mahomes is my lower guy. Still, my number 5 quarterback. You can only put Mahomes so low, but not that locked in number 1 guy anymore. With his line banged up, with himself banged up, with his wide receivers banged up. Lots of cases against Mahomes this week. Watkins being out does not help him. Now, it obviously opens up some targets for Tyreek Hill. Maybe one of those cute third wide receivers, whether it's Pringle, Robinson, Hardman. Who knows who the fuck it is at this point, but one of those guys could emerge. But that Denver team is giving up the third lowest points to quarterbacks, the second fewest points to wide receivers. Only Tyreek Hill and Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce would be locked into my lineups at this point for the Chiefs. And this is certainly not going to help that overall offense by any means.
And Manny Sanders is limited participant practice, but should be good to go for Denver
against the Chiefs. He's going to put up fantasy points for your team.
Which is going to help.
Sutton. It seems like Sutton's emerged as that number 1 fantasy option there. He's been a beast this year. He really hasn't had any duds. Manny Sanders is also somehow Flacco's engineering
like a top 10 guy,
viable fantasy wide receivers. I never thought I'd say that, but ultimately when you're facing the Chiefs, you have to get your points. You have to get them in a hurry. We might see a more pass-heavy script, but you also, try to get the ball out of Mahomes' hands. And we've seen the last 2 weeks, whether it was Carlos Hyde or Marlon Mack, it become a very run-centric team, and the Broncos can run that ball. Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman both having nice years. So ultimately, it's tough for me to trust both Sutton and Sanders. I'd really only lock in Sutton, but if you have Sanders, he's right around my wide receiver 36 or so, probably in your lineup. He is a baller, and I could see him finding the end zone in this one. I mean, yeah, because Singletary's looked great anytime he's been
Devin
out there.
Singletary,
it was clear
full participant
they were giving him the
last 3 games. Should Frank Gore be
before
worried?
We put you back out there. And what a perfect time to come back out right against Miami, the worst team against running backs. I can see both Singletary and Gore finding the end zone and having solid days here. But this could also spark their schedule. These next 6 weeks is absolutely abysmal, the Buffalo Bills. They face the easiest run defense slate and such an easy pass game slate, too, that Singletary, if there's anybody out there that's been struggling If he just, maybe a toss in on a deal, you can kind of make it seem like he's just a little, tiny auxiliary piece on a trade. This guy could light it up these next 6 weeks. I love to see what he's going to do. I think the talent's very real, and I love his matchup this week and the next 6 weeks moving forward. So I'm excited to see him get fully healthy and what he does this week.
Mm-hmm. All right, Tyrell Williams missed Wednesday's practice.
Well, I couldn't have seen Antonio Brown. I mean, I guess I could have somewhat foreseen the guy going complete psycho mode.
It was the worst pick of the entire draft. I picked him.
And he's been thriving in that role. He's got a touchdown in every single week outside of one.
I didn't pick him knowing he'd be the number one guy and still be pretty good.
He sat last week after missing practice all week. So now this is 2 full weeks of missed practice. It's a foot thing. So if it was just a tiny little sprain after 2 weeks, he should be out there. This suggests to me, I mean, I'm no doctor, but maybe it's that plantar fasciitis or something more serious going on. It'd be tough to trust. I mean, if he plays, the matchup's not great against Green Bay anyways. I wouldn't be playing this wide receiver that's less than 100% in a tough matchup anyways, without knowing the severity of this foot injury. But to me, it suggests it's a lot more severe than we originally thought. Yeah, not too great. It's I think Josh Ferguson and Wendell Smallwood's actually on
practice.
the good old Smallwood. Like the matchup's not great anyways for Washington this week.
Sure.
No, there's not. Yeah, right. It's just pathetic. But that run D is facing the 49ers, who we've seen just shut down everybody. They're going to have no problem shutting down this attack incomplete. Chris Thompson is going to be out with a turf toe, it seems. But even then, AP, whether he gets a volume spike or not, I'm not using any of these guys. It doesn't really matter to me. It seems like it's Veterans Day rest for AP, but ultimately, you're not using him against the 49ers. You can only use him against like Miami or crap teams where the rare time it's going to be a positive game flow for the Skins.
Deshaun Jackson looks likely to miss his 5th game in a row with an abdominal strain. He's missed the last 4, did not practice again on Wednesday. Man, boomer bust guy.
Absolutely.
Because the guy hasn't even seen the field.
No other.
You have to think his presence
not having
really
him there
help
has clearly hampered the offense because he was absolutely exploding in that first week. I mean, moved to the slot, running vertically out there. He brings such an interesting dynamic to this offense. Him and Wentz had unreal chemistry. And with that all said, I would be looking at my waiver wire because I'm starting to see this guy get dropped. His owner's getting frustrated because he's not playing. Now you're in the bye week crunch zone. So if you're in a nice spot and you don't need that bench wide receiver to use, go see if Deshaun Jackson's being dropped. He's still right around 60% owned, but a lot of owners are sending him out there. So I get you're frustrated, but the schedule is going to get a lot softer for the Eagles. And Deshaun Jackson was a fantasy difference maker in that first week when he was actually fully healthy. Give him a long look if he's on your waiver wire for sure.
All right, last and least.
You definitely put him on there only so you could say last and least.
Full participant in practice. Looks likely to start this week for the Bears.
It had to be the only reason because no one gives a fuck about Mitch Trubisky. I mean, Chase Daniels actually moved the ball a little bit better than Trubisky did, so maybe this is a bad thing for the offense. But if he's fully healthy, I mean, he has shown a high ceiling at times. I would not be using him by any stretch of the imagination. I just hope a guy like, let's say, Allen Robinson, who is thriving under Chase Daniels, he had some good games with Trubisky there too. But ultimately, I'm more worried about this offense with Trubisky than I am Chase Daniels, which says a whole hell of a lot about Trubisky. I mean, maybe Case Keenum, maybe. I mean, Josh Rosen or Fitzpatrick, definitely. But Fitzpatrick, when he's got it going, is still better than Trubisky. I mean, Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco, it's debatable. Ryan Tannehill for the Titans.
Fitzpatrick might be better.
Maybe. Yeah, it's bad.
No.
It's pathetic, and again, they traded up for him in the same
Joe
draft.
Flacco's
Mahomes
definitely
and Watson
better than
were in.
That's just,
has to make your blood curdle
if you're
my God. So fucking pathetic. Imagine the Bears with Mahomes or the Bears with Watson.
When you could be
how good they would be with that
business?
defense, it's insane. It's insane. like a failing Blockbuster, maybe.
I'm talking about Mitch Trubisky business. What's the business equivalent to Mitch Trubisky?
That's just.
What's
he's had like 2 to 3 random flashes of brilliance.
Shitty company that's just always
for
shitty
no apparent,
always will be shitty. But the people have like the stock value's been kind of high for no apparent reason.
Yeah,
if anybody can think of a really shitty company that they want to compare.
I'm not much in the business department.
Let me know. Clegg, if there's
woman
any
in the bar,
shitty
that's
Australian
more
companies we might not
things
know
I can handle there.
Feel free to shoot them to us because we'd love to know. I mean,
oh, good God. I shouldn't have even said that because without time,
just
a
right,
hideous
what's
woman
the
that
woman
wears
in the bar
caked on
Mr.
makeup
Trubisky.
so that like when she's there, you're like, maybe there's something here. Maybe the body's decent, but like once you get it washed off, it's like, holy hell, this is a nightmare right there. Exactly, like just disturbing, and 1 or 2 times it hits because you had just enough in you. The
like
matchup was right and juicy like they were for Trubisky, but ultimately like 99 out of 100 times it's just hideous and disgusting, and you just had a little bit of layer of something over it that maybe covered it up a little. And now they're texting you that's lingering, and you're like, good God, yeah,
and
exactly.
you gave her your real number
exactly
when you still thought maybe you like. Now I have to change my number. I'm gonna have to move. Yeah.
I did week 5 and week 6.
All right,
I tried
higher,
to
lower,
put them
Hail
all
Mary
together
report card last week.
We don't have to go through all of them.
How you did last? I don't know. It says week 5 results. It might mean week 6 results. Okay. All right. Well, you've done well on quarterbacks. You've done okay on running backs. You did pretty well on
6,
receivers.
Maybe,
not so
6.
well on
now
tight ends.
Henry's
Tight ends
back,
are
like
just
7.
like shitty all around, pretty much. How many good tight ends did you say there? Like 7 or 8?
Kittle.
So
I feel like you got to
just
like
real quick.
It's like
Travis
it's a combo.
Kelce,
Kittle and Ertz. Like those guys are always like lumped together.
Kittle,
he
Mark
hasn't
Andrews.
even topped 100 yards yet this year. Yeah. Austin Hooper, I think, is the number 2 tight end in fantasy right now.
I mean,
Evan Engram. So like we're at like 6 or 7 there.
Has been
Darren Waller, after, but it's one of those things where there's like there actually is.
Evan.
It's disgusting, and that's the thing is like there's more options this year than there have been in past. There's like probably 7, maybe even 8 guys
6,
you could roll out each week. But once you get past that 8, it's literally just a complete crapshoot of complete crap. Like it's awful. Yeah.
Yeah, I have Andrews in 2
Gerald
of my
Everett.
3 leagues, and in the other one,
T.J. Hawkinson,
I'm like,
Jimmy Graham.
It's like streaming. It's like Jason Witten or like some other shit. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So hideous.
Like, it's terrible, and it's like if you happen to get a touchdown, you're just thrilled. I mean, because really you're probably gonna get like 4 points. All right, here we go. Week 7 predictions. Higher. Russell Wilson versus Baltimore. You got him as your QB1, 4 spots higher than the experts. I said maybe 2 weeks ago on the podcast. I wrote a piece for RSJ, a stock up on him, like maybe 3 weeks ago, and I was like, after Mahomes, this is the guy that would surprise me the least if he's the number 1 scorer in fantasy. Since then, Mahomes has not been great, and Wilson's just seems to be like upping the ante every single week. I mean, this guy might be the best quarterback in the NFL. He might even be the best.
He's got to be the early MVP favorite at this point.
He just looks pretty awesome. I know I sound like I'm just sucking him off like crazy, but I feel like he deserves it.
The degree of it, and as you mentioned, could he be the top quarterback in fantasy? Yes, absolutely. The only guy ahead of him right now by a meager 2 points is Lamar Jackson, and lo and behold, that's who he's faced up with against this week, and that's when Russell Wilson is at his absolute best. When the competition's high, he can rise to that level. The only duds he's had, last 6 games, 24, 41, 14, 30, 29, so 1 dud, and it's very predictable. It's when they're dominating a team and they just don't need Russ to do Russ things, but when it's a back-and-forth contest, as it should be this weekend against Baltimore, there's no one as dangerous as Russell Wilson, and with this defense sucking even more than they ever have before, that's part of what's led to them needing Russell Wilson's arm more than ever. I know Scott Barrett, when he came on the pod this summer, shared a great stat that since Russell Wilson's joined the NFL, no quarterback has racked up more points per dropback than Russell Wilson. The only issue is he just hasn't been dropping back because they haven't needed him to, but that's obviously flipped this year. We've seen him go back more, had to throw more than ever before, and that's why we're having these 30-point weekly bonanzas with the guy. Oh, and he could run too. So I imagine this guy's going to light it up. He has to be towards the top of your quarterbacks this week. There's no reason he should be below Mahomes or other guys. Russell Wilson's just lighting it up. Insanity.
Yeah. Also, second best touchdown to interception ratio in NFL history. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, the guy's got quite a resume. He really does. Lower, you wanted to go Aaron Rodgers again. You got him 4 below the experts, QB 10. We've heard this argument before. It's a sound argument, but just in the spirit of not doing the same guy again, you're going to go with Pat Mahomes against Denver. You got him as your QB 5. That's 2 spots lower than the experts. We talked about this just a little bit.
Under
Give me the pitch on Mahomes being a little bit overrated this week.
And that's been against easier matchups than Denver. Denver on the road as well. A lot of it is that line being banged up, the wide receiver core being banged up. He's been under constant duress, and he himself seems a little bit banged up, not escaping pressure quite as easily as he had been before. So with all those factors going against him, I mean, I could never go below QB 5, it seems, with him. But ultimately, everything's shaping up for another, QB 11, 12 performance. And now, of course, you're using him if you own Mahomes. But I don't see him getting much better than that, 18, 19-point threshold he's kind of been hitting these last few weeks.
All right, Hail Marys. Danny Jones, 30% owned.
That's disturbing and disgusting.
But you also got a true desperation pick thrown in there, and we got a Ryan Tannehill. I
actually threw up when I typed out the name Ryan Tannehill. That's why there's
I don't know which one of
these
guys
after
deserves more attention.
Yeah, definitely. It was tough to even swallow that puke back. I had to spit it up in the toilet. But Danny Jones,
just a little bit.
I get that he hasn't done much since that first Week 1 debut against Tampa Bay, but think about the weapons he's had. He had no Barkley. Shepard's been knocked out. He finally got Golden Tate back, and they're showing a nice rapport already, and now suddenly the wave of weapons. Evan Ingram's back, and you got Sterling Shepard's back, and then they're facing the Cardinals, who've been giving up the 3rd most points to QBs on the year. Kyler Murray coming into his own only helps this. A battle of the rookie QBs this week. Looks like a back and forth shootout style game, and I just can't stress enough how much pressure Barkley's going to take off this guy, how many defenders you're going to have to put into the box to try to account for him. So even if Peterson comes back and makes an impact for this defense, there's so many other weapons now returning for the Giants that they can't account for all of them with the pathetic corners they have. I see Danny Jones going for right around 302 scores as somebody that's not even owned in half of leagues. Could be a great streamer. But Ryan Tannehill, I mean, yeah, as gross as that is, he's gone 13 of 15 when he came in relief. He's actually slinging it all over the place in the preseason to the point they called for a quarterback controversy. They're in front of their home crowd for the first time in a little while. Who's going to fire up those folks? Like Ryan Tannehill, baby. I know it's disgusting. I can't actually fully endorse that at all, but right.
When you're in a situation and you're like, all right, we're in front of the home crowd, first time in a while, we need to put our best foot forward.
Who knows? It's just
we need
the matchup's not horrible against the Chargers.
God, man.
I'm just talking, of course you look at Danny Jones. If Minshew's there against Cincinnati, that's an obvious play. It's just if you're desperate in 2 QB leagues, I see him ranked below Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen. I could see the guy going 202 touchdowns. It's going to be gross, but who knows? Hell yeah.
All right. Josh Jacobs, we're on to running backs now. I wrote a stock up on him a week or two ago. Jacobs, man, he's just seems like he's just become a full-on workhorse. Playing against Green Bay, you got him as your running back 5 spots higher than the experts. Green Bay, good defense. I feel like it's kind of misleading, though. I don't know. The Green Bay defense is good, but I'm not, after the first week or two, it's are they really shutting anybody down?
Well,
or are they just kind of getting back and forth with people?
Secondary, but it's kind of
this might be a good one. I might like this call
where their
from you.
run
Why
D
do you
is
like
abysmal. Ever since they
the
traded
experts?
Mike Daniels, they just get dominated up front, bullied all over the place.
Right.
And they're giving up the 4th most points to running backs. And we're fresh off Jacobs, probably what you wrote about is the fact that he had 29 touches his last time out. Definitely the definition of a true fantasy horse. 28 fantasy points, and that was against Chicago nonetheless. Never mind Green Bay, so generous against the run right now. And the rest of the schedule for Jacobs, too, looks very soft. So if his owner, fresh off the bye, was struggling a little bit, and needs to move someone for some pieces, I'd be throwing out as many offers as I could to get Josh Jacobs, because I have a feeling we're going to see a great stretch run with a great schedule and just workhorse-style touches coming from here on out. I think Josh Jacobs is in for, over 152 scores this week to just spark an amazing end of season.
Tevin Coleman, who I actually caught some of his game the other week. Playing at Washington seems like a real juicy matchup. You got him as your running back 13. 6 spots above the experts. He looks quick, right? I mean, the guy looks like he can move. I'm impressed because I was skeptical on him going into the year, but
just haven't really seen it shown off in Atlanta because he didn't have tons of running room. But now behind one of the best offensive lines in the league, those holes are gaping in this Kyle Shanahan scheme, and he's hitting them as hard as we've ever seen from Tevin Coleman. He scored in back-to-back weeks, and I think it's an even more run-heavy script when you're facing a pathetic Washington D, giving up the 5th most points to running backs. If Jeff Wilson can have multiple 2-score days while Coleman's out, then Coleman could definitely have at least 2 TDs coming. So I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Multiple scores, 70 to 100 total yards, and a monster 20-plus fantasy point day for Coleman, who's ranked as like a mid-range RB2 right now. I have him right on my RB1 fringe.
We say lower. We're going lower on running backs. If you're going to say just quick, Nat, I'm not going to tell you who anyone's playing. No matchups, nothing. I'm just going to wake you up in the middle of the night. You don't know what week of the season it is. I'm just going to shake you, throw some water in your face.
What the love is for this guy.
Who's a running back that I should
every
say
single week he's ranked in the top 15 by the experts,
and I'd be right.
And he's finished inside the top 15 exactly once. In fact, he's finished inside the top 35 exactly once. He's been abysmal, and it's so easy and obvious to understand why. The offense is horrible. The line is horrible. The defense is horrible, so it gets game scripted out. So Gio Bernard comes in for the last quarter and a half, and yet every week we continue to rank this guy inside our top 15. What gives? I don't understand it. I get Jacksonville's given up the 5th to 6th most points to running backs. I get that they're generous to pass-catching guys, but that D-line is sneaky tough, and with the worst offensive line I think I've ever seen in the history of NFL, trying to move those, Calais Campbell and some of these monsters they have up front. It's going to be another week of Mixon shoving his nose into his offensive line's assholes and just sniffing as deep as he can. It's awful. It's awful. I don't get why everyone continues to love him. I feel like at RB20 I'm even way too high on him, so I might have to adjust that. It sucks. Isn't it the worst, dude? Nope.
I don't love him.
It's guaranteed 18 touches.
Stuck
right?
In
like
goddamn line. And you can't.
I just can't wait for AJ Green to come back and maybe give this
run,
offense some sort of spark. But even then,
I
hope to God not, for his sake.
Is he going to come back to the Bengals, though? I mean, there's all this talk about him being traded, and then there's people being like, oh, he's a legend in Cincinnati. They're not going to trade him.
I've
heard the Patriots. I've heard the Chiefs, which is terrifying. I've heard the Packers, and also the Saints. I mean,
forget it.
Give AJ Green
I hope to God that happens.
Give AJ Green to Aaron Rodgers opposite Devontae Adams.
Jules, come on, give me Jules.
Forget it, seriously.
Yeah, sexy
and
Jules.
Give Tom Brady opposite nobody because there's no receiver. Well, yeah, Jules. Okay, fine. All right. Melvin Gordon, you're lower than the experts on him too. He's playing at Tennessee. You got him as your 24. That's 7 lower than the experts.
Blow exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
I
haven't
point
seen
here.
anything yet.
Gordon has not hit 7 fantasy points
this guy's
yet
gonna
this
be like
season.
that. And
Tennessee,
frankly,
meanwhile, is very
blow.
tough against. They're on the 25th most points to running backs, so that's the 8th toughest. Particularly stout against TDs. They're actually only giving up half a TD per game, which is the lowest in the league, and that's where you'd expect Gordon to do his damage. So if the Chargers are going to suck, that's a negative game flow for Gordon. If he's not going to score TDs, that's where you want him the most. I just haven't seen anything. It's become such an ugly committee where Eckler's involved in early downs and goal line snaps, and who knows, I don't really want to use Eckler either in these situations, but certainly Gordon in a tough matchup. It's similar to Mixon. I think just a lot of name chasing here. Until I see this guy get back to that every down workhorse role, if we see it this year, I don't think I can trust him in my lineups. I mean, RB24, I guess, during bye weeks, if you're desperate, that means you're putting in Gordon, but ultimately, I haven't seen anything. It's similar to Mixon. That tells me this guy's going to have anything better to do this week than he has been. Carlos Hyde this week. That guy's as hideous as he is, he's getting 20 touches in the best offense in the league.
Who would you start, Melvin Gordon or Carlos Hyde?
Could easily stumble his ass into the end zone like he has been the last couple of weeks. Is that a decision you have to make?
Yeah. All right. No, I don't have Gordon. Hyde is like a borderline
He'd
running
be
back
one of those
for
classic
me, and
Hyde,
I was just
like,
thinking to myself,
you,
like, who's somebody
I see a lot
that
of
I
experts
would
do
like
like player
struggle
A
if I
versus
had
player
Melvin
B,
Gordon
and you
to start
like
with. No,
you
I don't know
cross
Melvin
out
Gordon
the
in any
name, because
leagues.
when you see Hyde, you get a little sick at your stomach. But ultimately, I mean, you see the usage. The numbers, they might not be efficient, but he's being fed as the fat ass he deserves, and he's falling into the end zone plenty. So, yeah, I mean, Hyde is actually a very viable RB2 moving forward, and it sucks because I cut him in some leagues because I'm just like, it's Hyde. He's not going to do anything. Yay. There we go. Exactly. Nope. Exactly.
The receivers on Houston are just so nasty, though. You can't stack the box against Houston. All right, Hail Mary's Alex Madison against Detroit. We have an Alex Madison sighting. You got him as your RB31. That's 16 spots out in the
anytime I get to shout out that zone blocking scheme of the Vikings, I will.
Sell me on Alex Madison if you think it's worth it.
It's so sexy. And Madison himself, he's kind of emerged as the closer when they're up, and I expect them to get up pretty early against Minnesota, and against Detroit, who's giving up the third most points to running backs. So Dalvin Cook is going to have a day. He's going to have 122 TDs, what have you. But if they get up big early, Madison coming off a 14 carry day. That was only 2 less than Dalvin Cook last week, and that was against a tough defense. Now that he's facing a joke Detroit defense, if he gets another 14 to 15 carries, Madison could easily get to 100 in a TD himself, and that's while preserving the most valuable handcuff value in the game. He's only 22% owned. It makes no sense to me because he's a handcuff with benefits to the ultimate, and this is one of those rare weeks I think you can really stream him if you're desperate at flex.
And,
I think I throw him out every week, right? Yeah, Rex
the final Hail Mary running
back. What would Rex
Burkhead's
music be? Like, what are you picturing as you hear his music?
Running down to the ring, is that Rex Burkhead?
Yeah, him doing like the strut and like blazing the guns, like strutting out into the field.
Thinking
like
Shawn Michaels' music, sexy
I like
boy.
it. I'm down for Burkhead throwing those pistols up.
I don't.
But he's my favorite running back. I feel like he's similar to Rodgers as my lower QB. Like I have Burkhead on here every week, and he generally doesn't suit up because he's hurt, and I don't know why I keep going back to him. But if he plays, the guy had 11, 8, and 16 in his only 3 games this year. He's a very key cog in this offense. So if he plays against a bad Jets team, he's every right to fall into the end zone just as much as Sony Michel, who can't seem to find it himself. I like Burkhead to find the end zone against the Jets if he plays.
All right, wide receivers. This is a guy that you seem to be very confident is going to blow up the Texans this week, and that's T.Y. Hilton, who, let's face it, going into the year, we're like, man, Hilton's stock, huge hit he's going to take with Andrew Luck retiring. Jacoby Brissett has filled in quite ably. You've got him as your wide receiver like 3 this week, 5 spots higher than the experts, and basically your selling point is that he just kicks the Texans' ass every time they play.
Whipping the big cog out and slapping it across the Texans' face. I mean, look at these last 5 game logs. 9 catches, 199, 4 catches, 115, 3 for 14, 1 dud in there, but that was week 17. He didn't play the full game. 5, 175, 2 TDs. 9, 115, 1 TD. I mean, that is an insane pace this guy has. He's been the apple to Brissett's eye, and a couple of those blow-ups came with Brissett while Luck was out. So ultimately, it's ranked as the best matchup by Pro Football Focus, facing one of the worst corners in the league. I really think Hilton goes yet again for 8 to 9 catches, another 120 plus, and at least 1, if not 2 scores against this pathetic Texans secondary. I love him to continue whipping it all over them.
And you brought up Golden Tate earlier, playing Arizona. You got him as your wide receiver 23. That's 7 spots higher than the experts. I'll be honest, I think you're too low on him.
I mean, 82%
I really think that he might
means, as I was saying earlier,
probably
these guys.
going I don't know. I mean, 23 is pretty high, but we'll
shadow
see.
Coverage. He tends to play on the outside there, and he's an every snap guy at this point. And the rest of that Cardinals defense, if he's not drawing Peterson, is complete garbage. They're giving up the 12th most points to wide receivers, and that seems even lower than I'd expect. Fresh off 102 TD day, 19 fantasy points the last time out, and that was against the Patriots, who have given up the fewest points to wide receivers. If he can get deep on that defense, he can certainly get deep against them. And as we mentioned, Barkley back, drawing some safeties in. I definitely think Tate goes for 1 long score while racking up a ton of receptions underneath against that soft zone coverage. I think he's going to absolutely crush it this week. Mm-hmm.
Keenan Allen, 3 weeks ago, this guy was the undisputed number one fantasy wide receiver in football. Right now, he's playing Tennessee this week at Tennessee. You got him as your wide receiver 15, 9 spots lower than the experts. Experts still have him at 6. Now, that's despite the fact that he's basically had 3-0 games in a row.
18
and
yards,
that's half the season.
Yards,
so what do you think? Where do you fall on Allen this week?
Has not seen more than 6 targets in a game over that span. And the Titans are another tough matchup. And he's been seeing joke matchups. I mean, the Steelers were giving up the most points to slot wide receivers entering last week. I think Miami was part of that dock. I mean, the guy has been, nothing. Phillip Rivers is just kind of crumbling a little bit. And the Tennessee script, they're much more generous to tight ends. So Hunter Henry, right off his 2 TD day, should have another explosion. I just don't see Keenan Allen getting it done against a team limiting wide receivers to the 8th fewest points at the position. I don't know when he's going to get out of this slump, but this does not seem like the game, in my opinion. I don't know how he continues to be ranked as a no-brainer wide receiver 1. Definitely more of a wide receiver 2, in my opinion, at this point. Just awful.
Adam Thielen playing at Detroit. You got him as your wide receiver 17. That's 8 spots lower than the experts. I cannot believe that there is a wide receiver on Minnesota that the experts are still ranking in the top 10. Now, look, Stephon Diggs went off last week. Extremely good receiver. Thielen went off the week before, also an extremely good receiver. But the fact is, Minnesota still doesn't throw the ball very much, and Kirk Cousins isn't that good.
Very obvious spots for these guys,
that's
where
the
it's
an
awful secondary and a great run
defense
over these last couple of weeks. Exactly.
Yep.
This one. Mm-hmm.
And Cousins kind of feels like he owes it to that specific receiver that week. Remember, I told you last week, I was like, you should have bet the farm on Thielen to go off 2 weeks ago because it was obvious he was going to.
Yep.
And you're right.
Exactly.
This is not
and now it's Dalvin Cook's turn for a big game. I see 25, 30 carries coming from this guy, as we mentioned with Madison, the third easiest matchup for running backs. This is going to be the Dalvin Cook show. This offense is still averaging a league-low 25 pass attempts, even with the last couple of weeks buoying those stats. I mean, think about all those weeks that we saw like under 20, like 11, 10 pass attempts. That's what I'm kind of picturing this week against a Detroit team where it's clearly a run-heavy script. Plus, we had Diggs emerging, so who knows who's going to score. But when it's that low of volume, as you said, it's not that I hate Thielen. The guy could easily find the end zone. But when it's that small of an aerial pie, you can't have someone on an offense like that inside your top 10 receivers. No way. Much more clearly a 2 wide receiver than a number 1, in my opinion. Yep.
Agreed completely. Cole Beasley, we're in Hail Marys now, versus Miami. It's worth taking a Hail Mary on anybody playing Miami. You got him as your wide receiver 41.
Experts because it's Miami.
67, so you're really giving Cole a lot more
There's not really
credit than the
much
experts.
More to go into, except if you want to dig a little bit deeper to how bad they are. They're worst against the slot. Their slot corner's name is Jamal Wiltz, who is the 5th worst graded cornerback by Pro Football Focus. I get that Cole Beasley had a dud last time out. That seems to have erased everyone's memory to the fact that he had 10 and 13 targets the last 2 weeks and had 3 straight weeks of 10, 11, 11 fantasy points. And that was without finding the end zone. So if he hits the end zone this week and then maintains that high target share, I definitely like Cole Beasley as a streamer against Miami this week. I think he's a shoo-in Hail Mary. I think he's under 4K on DraftKings too. So definitely a guy to look at for a cheap play.
Alan Lazard, Green Bay's 4th or 5th string receiver against Oakland. Your second Hail Mary, you got him as your wide receiver 46. That's 32 spots up from where the experts have him. Before we get into this, I saw obviously, probably more people had eyes on Lazard this week than usually because it was a nationally televised game and there were no games going against it. First of all, let's just talk about the game for a second. The Lions should probably be 5-0.
Oh, come on.
Second of all, Aaron Rodgers, I know you hate the guy. He's freaking badass. Like that guy is did you see how many balls his receivers dropped? I mean, he got picked off. I mean, the ball hit his receiver in the face. And they're like, oh, he didn't, Rodgers got picked off. It's like, yeah, but he hit his receiver in the face with the football and he was wide open. I feel like the Packers probably should have scored 40 points, which I guess is contradictory to me saying the Lions should have gone and won that game.
Awful.
There were 2 horseshit calls against the Lions. It calls them still. Yeah, that weird hands to the face calls.
Yeah.
They also point at Trey Flowers, who got them both called on him. He's had a decently long career. He's never committed a hands to the face penalty in his career. And they called him for 2 in this game in crucial moments that were just lies. Anyway, that got to get that off my chest. Alan Lazard, Rodgers had an amazing touchdown pass to him after he had semi-dropped a ball in the play before, which I just thought was such a ballsy throw and catch.
Obviously, you like him too. Whether
do you think Devontae Adams is going to play? Do you think this is going to affect whether you like Lazard or not, or do you like him anyway?
The early prognosis is neither of those guys are going to play, which gives Alan Lazard a fantastic matchup. Oakland's giving up the 5th most points to wide receivers and 2 of the worst rated corners on Pro Football Focus right now. What I particularly like about Lazard is the fact that Rodgers kind of lobbied for him to get into the 4th quarter. He hadn't played a single snap, but Rodgers said he loved how this guy practiced, loved the plays he got to connect with him on, and said, let's get this guy some chances. And lo and behold, he catches the game-winning score. And then the next drive, or not the game-winning score, but that big touchdown. And then the next drive to get to that game-winning field goal, he has 3 of the 4 completions, 2 of them going for first downs. I mean, Rodgers had a quote like, I'm going to run this play to Matt LaFleur because it's going to go to Allen. We're going to move the sticks. And it happened. Like he has as confident as he can be in this Lazard kid. Lazard himself is apparently going to the huddle and saying, let's do this, let's do that, showing much more poise than your average, just like no name. So Rodgers loves him. He's clearly made some big plays. He's 6'5", so he's a beast himself in a great matchup. The key there, again, Rodgers loves him. Like there's nothing more important than that. But I do have to have a little bit of words here. Rodgers being a badass. I mean, yeah, he's got a badass arm, and that throw was badass, but he has the temperament of like a 2-year-old fucking loser who has it. Yes, but
we're talking about 2 different things, though.
I'm shocked he didn't throw a hissy fit over that.
Guy's
old Aaron Rodgers, he seems to be a little bit more team-centric this year, so I don't hate him quite on the level that I have in years past. But ultimately, I don't know. I just fucking hate the guy. I think he's the worst teammate in the league. I think he's the quickest to throw this coach, whether it's his receivers, under the... I hate Rodgers. So no, I would never lobby the word badass ever around that.
I guess Jay Cutler's not in the league anymore.
One of the best arm talents. I won't argue that, but in terms of the intangibles, getting the big wins. I mean, what's his record against like winning opponents? Still. I think in the last 5 years is like 7-21. I'm just throwing completely random numbers, but I know it's like 30%. It's pathetic as can be. Yeah, exactly.
Those sound like
Rodgers is not that much better.
I'm just saying, he
does not have that clutch gene when it's against an actual good opponent.
3-50 against good teams.
I'm gonna find that exact stat.
Beat a lot of good teams. I mean, maybe he loses to him more. I don't know.
Why don't you
can think of plenty of games where he's ripped out a good team. All right, go ahead. All right, tight ends. Evan Engram, we've already talked about him. He's going against Arizona. You got him locked in as your tight end 1, 4 spots above the experts. You say it's an absolute no-brainer. Whoever's facing Arizona is my premier play, especially if they're as athletic as Engram. And obviously, you think he'll benefit from Barkley's return. No need to really elaborate on that. It's hard to disagree with that. Evan Engram is a great play this week, and I'm a little bit surprised the experts have him as their tight end 5. And we talked about the state of the tight end crop as it is. Really 5? I don't think so. Delaney Walker, you're lower on than the experts. You got him playing the Chargers. He's your tight end 13, which is, tight end no man's land. That's where you're just in that, shit pile of tight ends where you just got to kind of cross your fingers. 4 spots lower than the experts.
Right here. I fucking lost because I was too absorbed in Aaron Rodgers, which I found that stat. There it is, yeah. And he sucks.
No, he's 1, 2, and 5 in his last 3 games. Yep. I mean... he sucks. You guys you like better. You like Jimmy Graham. You like Everett better. You like Cook better. I agree with you on all 3 of those. Hail Marys. Fort Knox, tight end 15, 5 spots higher than the experts, playing Miami. We've talked about why we like people playing Miami. We don't need to rehash that. Yeah, he's not a bad Hail Mary thing, especially if you're streaming tight ends, which probably half of you are. Don't hate on Luke Wilson just to see if it's more of a role than a talent thing with Will Dissly being gone. You could see Luke Wilson taking a dive into the end zone. I don't think that's the craziest thing ever. I mean, here's what I look at with somebody like a tight end for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, who I've been talking about how great he is. anytime you got a phenomenal quarterback, you got a shot.
I do have that stat, but yeah, Russell Wilson does with Jimmy Graham led the league in red zone targets, red zone touchdowns. A couple years ago, we seen Will Dissly being a fantasy force, so he does love his seam stretchers, and Wilson blazed a 4.49 40 at 6'5" back when he was a rookie, so there is some potential there. This guy could develop into a play. He's only 7% owned, so if you're desperate at tight end, not an awful option, but yeah, it's 17 and 26-1 against teams with that finish the season with a winning record. That's a .395 winning percentage. 17 wins, 26 losses, and 1 tie against teams with winning records. That's a .395.
Say that one more time.
39.5%. Since 2012, yes, it was over his entire career.
And when is, and how
2012? I mean, when did he start?
And how many years? That's got it in his whole career. Okay, but that's not his whole career. That's
probably.
I mean,
still though, that's.
I mean, didn't he win the Super Bowl
the last 7
before
years?
that?
That's pretty fucking pathetic. Like,
so I mean, his career is probably like 12
years.
So you're talking like
career.
Okay. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they don't matter, and that is, that doesn't look great. And I know we're not comparing the two, but I had to look up.
That's so bad. I know Kirk Cousins has a really bad stat
in his career
records too, but
he's
Rodgers
6-52 against teams with winning records.
No, that's horrendous.
Not anything like that. Not anything like this. 6-52, and that by the way, this is from a year ago. And we just
but he does. See, that's what sucks. It's like he doesn't deserve that for this one.
Rams, who they should have beat.
There's no team more snake bitten by the rest than the Lions, in my opinion. It sucks. I feel bad. I actually feel bad for Detroit. I really do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. Actually, too. Yeah, that's a good point. No counter there.
But the Saints.
Oh yeah, shit. We got to get to Survivor. Yeah.
All right, mailbag.
No, not that's. It actually looks a lot like that's Nick Zaleski. I wonder if there's relation there, actually.
All right, Rob, is this the shark?
Maybe. The dolphin.
Okay. I know.
As much as I love Gore against that Miami team, with Singletary coming back, I'm going to lean Auden Tate. Now Ramsey's gone. That secondary's already been shell-shocked these last couple of weeks, and Tate's fresh off a 12-target day. I really like him to have another big day.
Antonio Mendoza, Humphreys, the aforementioned Auden Tate, or Brandon Cooks.
He scares the shit out of me too, but if there's ever a week to use him, they're facing Atlanta, and the one thing that Atlanta does worse than any team in the NFL right now is rush the passer. And if you give Goff time, that's part of why he sucked so bad, is that line's been a complete sev. But we've seen it with last week, Kyler Murray, who was under constant duress all season till last week. We saw it the week before with Deshaun Watson, who had been under fire all year until facing the Falcons. I think this is a week where Goff's just going to be able to sit back there, have a couple drinks and just enjoy himself picking this defense apart. And that's what Cooks needs to utilize that deep speed. Just give him those few extra seconds to roast a horrendous cornerback crew. I think this is by far Cooks' best game of the season. I could see him going 150-2. Can't have him on the bench at that point.
All right. Pedro Zanetti wants to know Michael Gallup or... and there's a guy on my team that has
I love them both, so I wish I could get them both into my lineup, but I got to go Gallup facing Philadelphia, giving up the most points to wide receivers, seeing like a 30% target share as the number 2 guy. So yeah, give me Gallup. I think I'm going to go Mixon. Give him one more smack on the ass. Let's see what he can do
Joe
against
Mixon
bad Jackson.
Or Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, that... I know. It's gross, but I think I'm just a biased owner, to be honest.
I don't know, dude. I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I'm a biased owner too, but I'm biased the other way. Fernando Perez, pick one for flex.
That's a lot of good options.
John
I wish
Brown,
I could pick
Devin
one
Singletary,
that bunch. I mean, I do
Carlos
love Brown
Hyde,
against Miami.
Hunter Henry,
anybody against
Mark
Miami.
Andrews.
But both tight ends, Hunter Henry and Andrews, facing bottom 5 matchups. I kind of lean Andrews. I think he's going to definitely score at least once, if not twice, against Seahawks, giving up the 4th most points to tight ends.
Yeah.
I love them all.
I would also probably go Andrews there, but there's like 3 guys on that list I like. Thanks for voting. PPR. Yikes. Duke Williams.
I don't know how you got in this situation.
Pettis
Thanks for voting.
Versus Washington. Man,
it is horrible. That is just god awful. Yikes is the right word to intro this question.
What is this, like a 24-team league or something?
Scored the last game out, and he's facing Miami. But holy hell, hold your nose and swallow back the puke. I would look first for some of those Hail Marys we already suggested on this podcast. Whether it's Cole Beasley might be out there, or what the fuck's the guy from Green Bay? The Xander, Lizard, whatever the fuck that guy is. We talked about it. Lazard. That's what it is. Lazard. I would look at those 2 guys first, and if they're not there, then yeah, Duke Williams.
Lazard.
That's kind of ugly. I feel like I'm just going to bench all the guys on Thursday Night Football there and roll Kirk and Tate.
2 of them in your flex spots.
I mean, I really actually think this could be Royce Freeman's
Jonathan
big
Tomlinson,
breakout. He hasn't found the end
Devontae,
zone
or
yet.
Royce?
He's the guy that
Which
has
Freeman
the most
am I
touches
taking half
without
point
finding
PPR?
the end zone yet. I think he does this week. Even still, though, Devonta, fresh off 71% of the snaps, fresh off a 2 TD day, locked into that receiving back role. He's locked in as a low-end RB1 when the matchup's right, and it's nothing too scary this week. The Rams giving up the 8th most points to running backs. I love that he's back, yeah. Fullback, baby. Throw on that cowboy collar and clear a path for us, Dunkelberger.
My favorite name. I love it when this guy writes in. Richie Dunkelberger.
I'm going to go. I'm not doing Dorsett. I think I go
Jeffrey
Diggs.
Philip Dorsett, Christian Kirk. Yeah. Need 2 of them. No, fuck that.
As I mentioned, I think this is Royce's coming out party.
As
much as I like Gore's matchup against Miami, the fact that Singletary's back and fully healthy makes me a little nervous as to what his outlook is. So give me Royce. I think he's going to smash one in against the Chiefs this week. Right. Pretty high, definitely.
Odds that Frank Gore rushes for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I know. I'm sorry. I want to watch it too. Tell Anna apologies for me.
All right, you got any social media?
I got to go with the Fantasy Fullback Dive, where we pave your path to 2019 titles as a product of the Roto Street Journal, rotostreetjournal.com, where we feed and breed fantasy wolves. Check out the app. Download it. It's looking great. We're filling it with great stock watches every day. Got my rankings in there. And now we're even adding featured articles to it. So fantastic stuff on the app. And then, of course, on Facebook is the one other social. We're also on Instagram and Twitter as well, Roto Street Journal. But Facebook especially is where we do a bunch of our live broadcasts. We'll have our Thursday night tailgate tomorrow, our flagship Sunday tailgate at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Get your sit-start questions in. We want to go for the record. We crossed 220 questions a couple weeks ago. We want to hit 250. So come on in, come to the tailgate, share a beer with us, share your questions, and let's get you ready for a Week 7 win, Wolfpack. Here we go, baby. Good stuff right back at you, and I'm the Wolf. See you guys.
All right, good stuff, Wolf. My name is Nat the Truth Jones. Later.